when trolls say prove viruses don't exist. Anytime you hear that kind of question, you know that you've got yourself a dirty little grubby controlled opposition shill who, even if he's pretending to be a friend at the time, is in actual fact playing against you. And it's all part of a scam because it's calling you out on a bluff. This whole point of the bluff is based on because you can't prove a negative, and they know that, and they may or may know that if you know this or not. But their problem is they don't have a virus and you know it. So in this double bluff, you are actually the one who's got the high value cards, or they hatch nothing. That's the best place to be if you're going to pull a bluff at all. And it's all based on the scientific method, as the other side knows, that you can't prove something that doesn't exist, you can't prove a negative, you can only prove a positive, and this is what they are hoping to win a point on. And you can always go back at them and say something as ridiculous as, are you denying the elephants can fly by flapping their ears? Going, okay, prove it, they can't fly by flapping their ears, and they know you're having a poke, but it doesn't necessarily shut them up. But it's always worth having a little laugh all the same at what they're attempting to do. So this is just a couple of bits and pieces that I've found around which are relevant to what I'm moving on to. This one's on about aggressive antibiotic regimes in critically ill people, and what does it do? Higher mortality. So it kills people. It's not very good at all, is it? And also another side effect of antibiotics, strange enough, is that, guess what? It increases the risk of C. diff infection in their studies. So it basically means it does the opposite of what they claim it to be. I wonder why it does that. No, something to do with toxicity, I think. But moving on to this other bit, which I'm going to look at, which is the non-human reads, which is in the paper, and also which I'm going to move on to, which I found was quite interesting, is how many people have had their so-called DNA from something as simple as a saliva sample, for example. But even in a BALF sample, I would argue much the same problem, and it actually is. So the most concerning complication is that non-human reads align to the human reference genome using standard methodology, which can critically affect resulting variant genotypes identified in a genome. So they've got a real problem on their hands, and they're quietly admitting it, but they're not making it so widely known. So this is the paper, the URL to the paper. This is the actual name of it, new coronavirus associated, very weak language there, with the human respiratory disease in China, and that's why they use very weak language here, is because they know they don't have it. And you click down there and you can get yourself the PDF itself. So this is the PDF, and you can have a look at some bits and pieces, just a quick run over, nothing too heavy here. So you can see we've got a single patient, they admit it, you know, big country, even in Wuhan there's meant to be hundreds of people sick, but one patient, and they took a sample of BALF, and they are going to admit that whatever it is they invented, created, magicked out of thin air, that had a similarity of 89.1%, 90% similar to something they already knew about. And this other part here, interesting, is that what did they actually do? Well, they used antivirals and blah 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 blah, and what was the result of this poisoning? Because that's really what they did. Well, they had a respiratory failure, and then that was moved into being into non-invasive ventilation. So it would appear to here that they actually caused the problem that we were looking for. Quite handy when you're faking up a pandemic, no doubt. And all these viruses here, of course, are completely imaginary sequences stored on a computer, nothing to do with anything that's actually real. So you can see here that they assembled their fakery by using a couple of software programs called MegaHit and Trinity, and they're talking about the non-human reads, which came to nearly 24 million. So we also have a look down a bit further, Then you see there's no images of actual said virus here, it's all genomics, metagenomics. Anyway, so they're also saying that pathogens were not detected in the above sample. So if it didn't find anything which was going to cause any problem, and if they had SARS-like, anything at 90% like this, they would have found that too, but they didn't. I wonder why, because there was nothing there, and that's the whole point of this. So you come on to this paper again, and we can move on to there, and we can use what we've got so far, and say to our little troll in our reply, as they say, this is the original paper, give them a link to it. In the method section they took one sample for one patient in a country that's got 1.4 billion people, and found no pathogen or virus inside the patient, no virus inside the sample. Used 2 computer programs to fake it all up and still have no EM image from the patient or isolation purification of said virus, as well as no proof of transmission or pathogenicity. So with all that said, you can just say to your troll, if you think that they did, please indicate where they did this in your reply. And all you get after that is a big wall of silence from your troll, because they can't do it. They know it. You know it. So just smile, be happy, you won your point.